Kotru managa, Kotru mara, symbol of peace. And honestly, my association with KO in specific started 7 to 8 years back when I got engaged through my creative writing skills when Article 370 was abrogated. At that time there was a strong narrative around human rights violation and that internet should sort that so that time I really felt ki, what's this, what about our human rights, and nobody seems to be caring about or even talking for that matter. And so that's where I said, okay, it's upon us to care for our community, to care for the things that matter to our community, and be advocates for that. And soon after I became sort of the zonal director. It is one of the aspects about this role is about advocacy, and we should obviously by all means do that. But Lukanchu viral it basa hai it much person melan even Kach president asan yuta, they're chasing behind this post, and it much person melan. So let me put it this way. If I'm not there, somebody else can do my job, right? There's enough talent here that can replace me in that capacity. But I think the job that we got to do as volunteers for our community, it's pretty unique. And I think that's where I feel an added responsibility that I can't outsource it to anybody else. I mean, at work, probably yes, I can find a replacement, we can have a succession plan. But for this work, I feel personally sort of obligated to come forward and not have a sort of an argument. Hey, maybe somebody else can do. Rishikji, I think there are multiple aspects to why I feel I'm the right candidate. I have the right pulse of our elders in the community. I understand where they are coming from, and I'm probably the last generation who has a living memory of our ancestral homeland, and that responsibility of becoming the bridge between our sort of 5,000-year-old plus civilization, and how do we transmit and sort of continue that heritage, that culture, and retain and pass it along to the next generation. While I understand and have a pulse for our elders, in the sense that we have probably a shared experiences of our ancestral homeland, I also can bring the connect to our next generation from, and hopefully inspire and energize our next generation. So I'm really viewing myself as that bridge between our older generation and our next generation. And COVID, we had such a large disaster back in home. I worked very closely with our young members in the community here, and we set up sort of an extensive call center operations where, and I was playing the role of sort of activating and facilitating the youth. I can't wait for example, my kids to grow up, for me to be done with my job, for me to fulfill all my other obligations before coming forward. I mean, time is of essence, and we got to act now and inspire the next generation into sort of taking a more active role in preserving our culture. I think whatever KOA does, I think we need to make some structural changes where youth is embedded as part of those individual uh, programs, for that matter, or initiatives. I'll just give an example. Like we run a lot of these programs, whether it's EAP, SAC. Should we have a youth coordinator for each of these programs? Should we have youth coordinator at a zonal level, at a chapter level? So that's how you really scale and embed youth as part of your core mission. Right. When there's a group of people aligning on a particular idea is a process, I would say. I wouldn't call it challenging in the sense it's a process. Obviously, there will be some perspectives that you need to understand here, and we need to go through that. I think the bottom line, and that's how I've approached it. Keep it matter of fact. I mean, and what's your true north star? What are you trying to accomplish? For example, in COVID times, those were so we had to deal with some situations where none of us had dealt, and we had to take some decisions which were unconventional. So providing enough data points, giving them sort of perspective about, hey, what are the pros and cons, and basically reasoning it out to them. So if you can be sort of unbiased, in the sense you're not sort of locked to a particular idea or locked to a particular group of people, and sort of in a very inclusive or non-partisan way you approach a particular issue, I have found success in that approach. Extremely crucial. See, at the end, we are a very volunteer-led organization. It's a community organization. So any material change that we want to do, I mean, it cannot be done unless there is a sort of a broader consensus about things we want to accomplish as a community. So honestly, if you were to ask me one big thing, maybe building that trust among your board members, building that trust with the broader community, I think that's most paramount. Once you establish that trust, I think things become a lot easier. I think time has come where we need to balance on three key aspects. One is what we need to do here as a community to retain our culture here in US. I mean, through various programs, focus on the community here in the US, which can be first of all engaged. I mean, if you see, I would say majority of the community members are not even engaged. I mean, let's meet them where their interests are, what is relevant to them. Right. So through various programs which I proposed, so that we can take some ambitious projects, because some of those projects, unless there is a broader participation from the community, it won't happen. But these need to be done if we got to preserve our rich culture, rich heritage here in the United States, and pass it on to the next generation. So that's the overarching theme number one. What do we do here in the United States? So the second theme that you'll see that is about how do we reconnect with our ancestral homeland, right? And now I think the time has come to make new memories with our next generation. So I'll give you an example. Like, I have a 6-year-old and 11-year-old, right? So, and they've seen me very passionately involved with the community, and they've just heard about Kashmir, right? So this time when we were in India, it says Government May month. So I made it a point to make a trip to Kashmir, and obviously my family went. My mom was there, my uncle, aunt. So we made an extended family trip, and there were people from three generations. And each generation had a very unique experience. And when we came back, I was just generally having conversation, and I said, okay, what was the best part of the trip? And such mein banan leather. मैं तो not got fikri what she was saying. And then she said Kashmir leather. So she was talking about Pahalgam leather and Kashmir. So Kashmir was the best part of her trip, and so that's the power of that place. And I could see the sense of identity after that trip. And because so my aspiration there, as part of that third overarching theme is, what can we do now? Have a future where our community has moved out to a better life. Our youth is not still struggling uh, with limited means and opportunities back in those migrant camps. So sort of mentorship. I mean, we have so many successful people, not just here, but in India as well. I mean, how can we activate the broader community is to make it an holistic approach. Let's support across the journey, like from school, college, help them find jobs, and feedback some of the beneficiaries. How can they empower the program back, right? Why these programs need to be just restricted to our community? Anybody for that matter, who cares about what has happened to the community, they need not be just Kashmiri Pandits. I mean, these programs need to be sort of exposed to the broader Indian community for that matter, and they can be part of the program. So there has to be more than just monetary thing. How do you create opportunities so that they get inspired? These are some of the aspirational aspects, but what is tangible, what is immediately actionable, and there is a lot of operational stuff. I think we need to start addressing some of those. And for example, as simple as membership data, right? How can we streamline our membership data? How can we have mechanisms in place where people are reminded about renewing their membership? As simple as that, right? So today, there is a missed opportunity.
Is
More
it a
than the
matter of
effort,
effort or
it's
skill?
it's a matter of focus,
Oh,
right? It's
okay.
a matter of prioritization.
I
So I
see.
think I would say technology is an enabler, right?
Right.
And enables us to do a lot more than what we can accomplish. So I think some of the foundational aspects about investing and sort of prioritizing our technology assets.
Right.
I would say that's 101 in this day and age, and we have the talent. I mean, young talented folks who are willing to contribute, and my hope is, through initiatives like that which they relate to and they can contribute to it.
Right.
We can activate a bunch of volunteers to contribute to that.
Okay.
How can we sort of broad base our engagement? I think if you see, one of the most foundational things, there is only a subset of people who are really engaged with KOA, right? I mean, that's and unless we have a broader engagement within our community here, I think whatever we do, it will only have a limited impact.
Right.
So I would say, in initial days, we need to put a blueprint. Hey, these are the areas where we are going to basically prioritize our efforts, and create sort of focused teams which are going to pick up those tangible goals, tangible initiatives. For driving engagement, we need to have sort of a multi-pronged approach, right? For example, like professional events, right? And that gives an opportunity for so many young professionals to learn from our mentors within our community.
Right.
How we operate, I feel, is how can we empower the grassroots volunteerism. Because see, as a president or a selected board or a selected executive team, we are just a handful of people, right?
Right.
I mean, uh, so if we are expected to sort of drive and govern a community led organization in a top down fashion, I don't think we can scale beyond a point. So how to create sort of manageable self organizing teams who care passionately about those goals,
Right.
and they and we have a structure where we empower them.
Right. Right.
I think that will be sort of the foundational priority for me in the initial phase. And first of all, you're right. Dijotamji is not opponent in the sense, in the traditional sense. I mean, it's all volunteer work. It's
Right.
all community work. I
Right.
mean, we are part of the same team at the end of the day.
Right.
We all have different ways to approach things, but I think the end goal is the same. How can we do more for our community, right? And become a channel and an enabler for that. And in the sense, I know a lot of people have this posture, hey, election splits the community, and divisions gasan and all. But I think I've a I have a slightly different take on that. I mean, elections, if done in a sort of a positive, healthy environment,
Right.
it brings community together. It's a democratic process. And I do joke about it. I did a stand up, I think, last KOA camp, and this was one of the jokes that I said, Sainis voters shunu kunjai value, exi jaichu value, suchu KOA. So let's celebrate this democracy that we have in KOA. I think it's a shared responsibility, and I don't view myself as the leader of the community. As I see this role more of an enabler, right? I'm here to facilitate. Sure, I think that's a very fair question. And let me tell you, I mean, Surabhi is, I would say, the pillar for whatever I do. And honestly, she is an equally passionate volunteer. I mean, she has been very actively engaged with KOA. She's on the board of Hemat again. Hemat works tirelessly for uplifting the women in our community back home. So she's an equally sort of passionate volunteer, so to say. And I know it is a commitment, but I think where there is a will, there is a way, right? I mean, you prioritize things that matter, and you sort of let go of things that are not so important. I would say last 10 odd years where I have been actively engaged, I've seen zone 4, zone 3, zone 5. We have had leadership from some of those zones. I think what matters is, I think in general, it's healthy to have a rotational leadership.
Yeah.
What it does is not about the individual. What it does is it activates the local volunteers to take more ownership and
Right.
bring new stuff to the table.
Right. Right.
I think that's the beauty of this model, that we can have leadership change every 2 years, every 4 years, to different areas, which sort of activates a new set of people into the leadership. So I don't think you should be worried. I think what's out there is only an opportunity.
Right.
Opportunity to contribute in new and meaningful ways, and more people sort of becoming sort of activated to contribute. And that's really my hope. Like, uh, we all care about the community, whether it's East Coast, West Coast, this zone, that zone. It's all about, the opportunity to activate, new folks into the, main fold, uh, into sort of, the KOA leadership.
Awesome.
Ji, for having me.
Thank
Thank you so much, Rishik ji, for having me here. And just to close the point on the election outcome, I mean, just going back to my conversation with Dijotam ji, I mean, it was my commitment to him that if he wins, I will be happily supporting him in the board on his initiatives. And if I win, I would love for him to contribute in the form of advisory and, take forward the initiatives that he cares about. So I would love to sort of, follow through on those aspects, those commitments that I've made. And I wish him all the best and good luck as well. And thank you to the community who has really shown that how much they care. I think that itself is overwhelming. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Good luck. Namaskar.
Namaskar.